Hello again. Oh dear, actually need to put the rest of the lights on. This effect would have been really cool if I could get a smart switch for the ring light and have all the lights come on at the same time, but unfortunately the smart switches are TP-Link Casa and the light bulbs are TP-Link Tapo. I don't know why there are two different ecosystems, but they don't work together. Anyway, this video is me talking about the Eufy RoboVac X8, which is one of Eufy's more expensive RoboVac models, and it has its upsides and its downsides, and we'll get into those. But it has been broadly, because we've just had another baby. Anytime I say I've had a baby, people go, "Oh, it's your first, welcome to fatherhood." And I'm like, well, actually, I have a 15-year-old daughter and a toddler, so got the whole set right now. And obviously vacuuming is something that takes a little bit of time out of your day, and it's something that I'm historically quite terrible at. When we got our upright cordless vacuum cleaner and I tested the one from Eufy a year ago now, I was vacuuming everywhere because it was good fun and it's new and novel, but as soon as the novelty had worn off the vacuuming, it kind of stopped. And it's only when you see like some visible dirt, it's all right now because the robot's been around, but it's only when I see some visible dirt that I'll get the vacuum out and do a once around the room or whatever. So yeah, vacuuming when you're busy parenting, half asleep, and trying to record videos as well is a bit of a chore that if a robot can replace, then I'm all for that. I tested some. Oh, it's so long ago, I've even forgotten when. It must have been 10 years or so. I tested some of the first robot vacuum cleaners, and way back when, their general premise, if I remember correctly, was they had a camera in the top. Oh, it's the remote for the ring light, don't need that. They have a camera in the top that points upwards towards the ceiling, and a lot of people are going to very immediately notice some critical flaws with that idea. First and foremost, the ceiling is generally the most empty part of the living room, or whatever room you happen to be in or want vacuuming. It doesn't have any obstructions, it doesn't have any furniture, unless you're in some of those wacky upside down houses. There's no way that you can point a camera up, track the ceiling, and get a general sense for how to navigate a room. It's silly. And the second problem with this is obviously having a camera driving around your house pointing upwards, or having a camera driving around your house at all, is going to trip alarm bells in all the Internet of Things people going, camera roving around your house? That's a frankly terrible idea. Upwards pointing camera roving around your house? That is a thoroughly terrible idea. So you'll be interested to know perhaps that the RoboVac has no cameras whatsoever. Not even the front-facing object recognition one you find on some vacuum cleaners. And I can appreciate the idea of front-facing camera on the front of a RoboVac that does object recognition and obstacle avoidance, but if you've got that much stuff on your floor, pick it up. You don't want a camera driving around your house. Come on, be realistic. Oh dear. So, oh god, that was loud. So, in lieu of a camera, it's got a standard ring of downward facing cliff sensors, so it knows it's about to fall down the stairs and it will put the kibosh on that sharpish. It has a front facing distance sensor. I think it's a fairly standard old Sonic one. It doesn't look particularly fancy. It could be laser ranger actually. I actually write software for and work with laser rangers among other sensors, so I have rather too much experience with them. So it has a laser ranger on the front, possibly another one on the side, which calls its wall sensor. And you can clearly see that it does a kind of maze-solving approach to rooms, where it will drive around the outer edge of the room first with its wall sensor facing the wall. So it can kind of get the general premise of where it's going without constantly bumping into the walls and making a general hash of things. So yeah, the wall sensor keeps its distance from the wall as it roves around the room. The front sensor obviously stops it bumping into things forwards, but the mainstay is the LiDAR on top, and it's actually really cool. So it has the spinny LiDAR at the top, which is basically a laser distance sensor. So it spins round and round and round and round, and by getting the distance to all the points around the room as it spins, it can basically build up a map of precisely that height in the room. You can get, I'm pretty sure, better LiDAR systems that have up or down axis as well, so they can actually scan the geometry of the whole room. But for the purposes of a robot vacuum cleaner, it pretty much just scans everything at its laser range height, so it can detect the legs of chairs, it can detect larger furniture, where the walls are, obviously. And from this LiDAR thing, you'll actually see in the app, which I'll have to cut away to actually, you'll see in the app how it builds up kind of this wall map of your living room, and it will go around and it will figure out where it is, and it will sort of move around the outer edge of the room and it build up the perimeter. And you'll see in the app there'll be a map, and it will show you kind of, it's a very rough sort of approximated map. It's sort of aliased down to a sort of pixel art style thing, so the distances don't have to be super accurate, but it gives you a general impression of the scale and the layout of your room. And obviously that means the robot knows the scale and the layout of your room and can figure out the best cleaning strategy. And that strategy is usually do the perimeter first and then work backwards and forwards down the room in rows, which works reasonably well. There are unfortunately some flaws with cleaning, no pun intended. So yeah, it will build up a map of your room. You can see in the app this map, and you can get a general sense for whether or not the robot is doing the right thing. You can in fact watch it drive around the room, the map. But the cool thing is that once it knows your room sizes and your room scales and the general placement of walls, it can use that to, it'll move around the room when you first start it up, and it will run its LiDAR and it will get a general impression for what it's seeing around itself. It will compare that with the internally stored maps, and it will go, I've positioned myself. So the robot can actually absolutely position itself within its map of your house based on what it sees around it, which is, it's pretty cool. So I had a thing where toddler is a little bit afraid of the robot. We had it in the living room, kind of over there against the wall. It was sort of in the way, and toddler was a little bit afraid of it, wasn't happy going past it, coming in and out of the living room. So I moved it and hid it underneath our coffee station in the kitchen and put the charger and everything back there, fired it up, it came out, drove around, sort of drove backwards and forwards in the kitchen a little bit and went, I'm in the kitchen, and boof, there it was on the map. And it did a little wreck of the kitchen, vacuumed up, cleaned everything, and then drove back to the charging station under there. The trouble is the maps aren't super great at updating once they've been stored, so it will continuously go back to where the charger originally was in the living room. So what I need to do is delete the map and do a full clean of the downstairs again and redo the map, which I'll get around to. It's relatively straightforward process in the app. You can also have multiple maps, so you can clean upstairs and downstairs, which works about as well as you'd expect. I did the upstairs by basically just plonking the vacuum kind of in the hallway and saying, go and do your thing, and the map is sort of slightly askew, but it did clean the rooms. And then I did it again upstairs, just today in fact, in a single room, and unleashed it, in fact, in toddler's bedroom, to do a good thorough vac of the floor with the suction turned up to max. It pulled a lot of dust out of the carpet. Quite impressed with that, actually. And it got confused. It thought it was downstairs. It spent quite a lot of time sort of bumping into the door in the corner of the room, going, oh, why can't I go through this bit? I think there's a space here. There shouldn't be a wall here. What's happening? And when I looked at the map after the fact, I could see that it had drawn, I keep going to grab my phone, but I'm recording on my phone, so I could see that it had drawn like the bedroom inside the living room, and had got a little bit confused. And that was after I deleted the map, so I think there's still like a few kinks in the app that could be worked out and could make it a little bit better. But generally, if you just fire and forget it downstairs and let it do its thing, works really good on hardwood floors, obviously. The carpets, also pretty good at. Tend to turn the suction up a little bit higher so it can pull the dust out and do a good job. We tend to have a very dusty house due to aforementioned not vacuuming frequently enough problems. I'll accept that. So yeah, it pulls dust out pretty good. It'll do upstairs and downstairs. If you move it around, you probably don't want to manually lift it up. And you can also have it clean on a schedule, which is very useful, but I haven't done that because having it spontaneously come to life while there's kids around the house can be a little traumatizing. And I speak from experience there. I had that 1980s robot with the like rockets and the colourful patterns on its chest that makes that awful noise. And I turned it off under the stairs when I was, you can tell because I have a terrible memory, but this is something I can still remember to this day. I turned it off and the power switch was obviously marginal and it flipped back on again and it absolutely terrified me. And I've been totally unafraid of robots ever since. So it is what it is, I suppose. So yeah, that's the good of the vacuum cleaner. It's an absolute godsend, an absolute lifesaver. The amount of stuff that it picks up from the floor and the amount of stuff that it can fit in its like dust compacting compartment is great. Like I've run it over the floor for the course of about 4 days, doing the 2 downstairs rooms, and it'll just keep compacting more dust into the dust thing. So you don't have to empty it every single time. Probably helps with the cleaning performance a little bit to empty it every single time, but I've not noticed any issues. It's astonishingly powerful for something so small. I say small, it's still the size of like an upright vacuum cleaner, I suppose. So maybe not that small. The downsides of it, it needs a filter, and that is replaceable. So it's like the Eufy, the S11 Go, I think, that I tested. That went really well with the S11 Go. And then we moved house and did a lot of building work, and there was a lot of plaster dust, and I ran the vacuum over bare floorboards and all sorts of heinous abuse and filled the filter absolutely chock full of plaster dust to the point where I destroyed it. And I thought, I get a filter when it's on sale, and they have never been on sale, and they have now gone out of stock on Amazon. So it's a little bit concerning to me that you have these replaceable filters. It doesn't do cyclonic separation like the Dyson vacuum cleaners, where it uses a series of cyclones that cause the air to fly around the outside and the dust inside is stationary and falls down. I can't remember how they work, but the general premise is they pull dust out before it hits the filter, whereas the X8, it pulls everything through the filter. So when you unload it after cleaning carpets, you'll find all the dust just rammed into the filter, and it's a pleated filter, so that means it all gets rammed into the pleats. And you get this nifty little brush tool to brush out all the dust from the filter, which is all well and good, but the filter itself starts to get a little bit, this is only after a few weeks of testing, bear in mind, the filter's got a little bit kind of worn and dust tends to stick in there, and it feels like it's not, it still performs really well, but it feels like it's not going to last super long. And they do supply the X8 with a single replacement filter, but I feel like if you're going to go in with something like this, and you know it's got consumable parts, buy them up front, especially if they happen to be on sale at the time you pick up the vacuum cleaner. If you're going to get an X8, look for the replacement filters, grab a pack, store them away somewhere. You will thank me sometime in the distant future when you realise you need replacement filters and they're possibly not easy to get or unavailable or just not cheap. Who knows? But yeah, have a spare set because they are consumable. The other thing is, 3D printer experts out there, the filter design is really simple. It's just like a little plastic shell about yay big that clips in, and the filter is just standard pleated filter material. So you could 3D print and create a replacement for it, I'm absolutely sure, with no problems whatsoever. The other things that are replaceable is the little spinny brush that runs in the corner, and that spinny brush is all right. It has little bristles on the end, and the idea is it goes around the corner of your room and it spins the dust that the vacuum cleaner can't quite reach because it has wheels either side of the actual brush and suction area. It just picks up that dust and brings it to the center where it can actually vacuum it up. The trouble with that filter on hardwood floor, that spinny thing, I should say, on hardwood floors, is it tends to flick dust clean across the room. So sometimes the robot vacuum cleaner will go and do a full room clean, but it's actually flicked dust out where it's already been and doesn't quite get everything. So there'll be little particles of food or grains of rice or whatever it is that you've left on the kitchen floor because children, and yeah, it'll leave things behind. If you've got it on a regular cleaning schedule, it'll go back round and it'll pick it up eventually, so it's not a huge deal. But yeah, and that brings me, I suppose, to the circular shape of the thing. Because it's a circle and rooms tend to be square, it's not so great at getting into the corners. And I had a picture of it before where I was doing some building work in the corner of the room, and I'd made an absolute terrible mess sanding the wall and hacking into what's it called, cinder block, really dusty, nasty stuff. And the corner of the room there was a sheen of dust over it, and you could see very clearly the circular corner radius where the robot vacuum cleaner had been around and hadn't quite got into the corners. So yeah, that's something to note, is that you'll have to go in and vacuum the corners yourself every now and then, just to keep things tip top. And there are robot vacuum cleaners with sort of square profile on the front, which will go in and do that. Well, I haven't tested any of them, so I can't really say how good or bad they are. The X8, despite its flaws, is still actually pretty good. That leads me into yet another downside, the mop. If you get the X8, don't get the mop. When I hear the word mop, I think of scrubbing, and you know, Studio Ghibli, Spirited Away, where they're doing the running down the floor with the mop and putting some effort into it. This thing is more of like a wet wipe over the surface of the floor. So it has like a mop pad. It has either replaceable ones or it has the washable one, and it's just a pad that velcros onto the bottom of like a water tank, and that water tank slowly releases water to keep the pad moist, and then it just wipes back and forward slowly over the floor. There's no scrubbing action, no kind of real pressure on the floor. So of course it picked up a bit of surface dirt off our kitchen floor, but really didn't mop it in any meaningful sense, at least not to a standard that I would want to clean a kitchen. So I went over and mopped it myself with a real mop. I suppose if you've got tiled floors, it will probably fare a little better because they tend to be smoother and don't have, ours are sort of laminate wood flooring. If you have tiled floors, they'll be a little smoother and it will probably work better, but I don't have tiled floors, so I can't attest to how true that is. Just know that on our sort of laminate wood floor thingies, that the mop was not very good. So yeah, if you get the X8, get the non-mop version, get it on sale, get some spare filters. The other things that are replaceable are the main brush, which should be taken out and replaced. But again, the dust compactor has a little tool inserted into it that's got a little kind of hook and a knife blade on it, and you can get that hook and knife blade, you run it down your brush to cut out all the hair, because obviously long hair is a big deal for vacuum cleaners. It gets wrapped around the brush, and it was actually so bad on our upright vacuum cleaner, it got spiraled around into the plastic at the end of the brush roller, and the friction had actually caused the plastic to melt and the hair to melt into the plastic. So I had to physically disassemble the brush and just cut away all of the melted hair and plastic to get it running smoothly again. That was quite harrowing. Anyway, that hasn't been a problem with the Eufy, because it doesn't tend to get hair kind of in the ends as bad, and also it has these little channels in the end of the roller where you can put that aforementioned tool in there and kind of grab it under the hair and just cut it off. So that's really all there is to say. It does the trick. It's been an absolute godsend over the last few, how long have we had it? Weeks, I suppose. But there's already been some significant wear and tear on the filter. It's looking a bit ropey. I reckon 3D printer enthusiasts would have no problem building their own replacement filters for it. Probably have quite a bit of fun. There's a good set of replacement parts currently available. So you can get a replacement battery, you can get the replacement roller, and there's like a little shop in the app you can go and you can grab all the bits you need. But again, I'm wary of stuff with replacement parts, not least of all because I spent some of my early career managing a laser printer, and that is just made of replacement parts. I'm worried at the fact that it just brings you into this ecosystem where you're not just using a product, you're having to continue to maintain it, but it also means if the parts do stay long-term available, you can repair and replace and keep it running and get your money's worth out, which is good. So there's positive and negative sides to having replaceable / consumable parts. But overall, I think it's a solid product. It does what it says on the tin. The amount of dust that it manages to pick up and the stuff that it manages to, I mean, cornflakes, rice, bits of food, just shocking amounts of dust off the hardwood floor. I've got picture after picture of grueling mess inside the dust compactor that just proves how well it picks things up. And it's some footage of it going back and forth over floors, and you can see it leaving things cleaner behind it. So generally it works. Why would it not work? I mean, if you're developing a robot vacuum cleaner, you're kind of going to make it work. It's just the relative comparison to other cleaners on the market, which unfortunately, having tested only this one in the last 10 or so years, I can't really make that comparison. I can just tell you that this one works. It works well. And well, that's pretty much it. If you've managed to make it through yet another one of these crazy haphazard videos, then please do like, comment, subscribe. If you comment, you are signing a binding and non-revocable contract that trans rights are human rights, so please beware and be mindful of that. But otherwise, enjoy your week, and please keep watching these terrible, terrible videos, and maybe they'll get good at some point. Who knows? I'm never going to stop editing them on phone. I'm far too lazy, or even shooting and sort of looking like I'm looking off to one side like that. Yeah, I just don't care enough, to be honest. Anyway, thank you very much. It's been an interesting vacuum cleaner to test. The toddler's been very excited by it, and speaking of robots, one of the next videos will feature this little thing here, which you probably can't see, so I'll do a little cutaway to some kind of revolving box shot that I'll do on a plastic Lazy Susan or something, who knows. Anyway, once again, thanks for watching. I don't know if I can do quite as dramatic an exit as last time because the lights are already on, but oh well. Lights off. Tatty bye.